Hey everyone, Trevor at Toploaded Gaming. I wanted to go ahead and make a video about Star Wars Battlefront 2 and the whole debacle with EA and microtransactions and all that. Specifically, Rich at Reviewtechusa made a video where he discussed a couple things, and I wanted to kind of get into some of that. On the subject of DLC and microtransactions, loot boxes, the whole fucking thing. In an ideal world, I wouldn't care to have any of those things. None of them. You know, it used to be a day where the things that you would get on DLC, you would just enter a code. You know, like on Mortal Kombat, you'd get the extra characters that they would put in the game by entering a cheat code. You know, stuff like that. But, you know, that day's done. Whatever. I'm just saying, in an ideal world, these things wouldn't exist. Maybe they would still exist on mobile gaming, on iPhones, iPads, Androids, whatever. I just wish they wouldn't be on consoles. Now, specifically in the video, Rich brings up, what if the price of games was, let's say, raised to $80? But if we raise the game to $80, then there would be no DLC, there would be no loot boxes, no microtransactions, everything would be in the game already. And the thing is, I would agree to that. I totally would agree with that. I'd have no problem with that. $80 a game, that the price of the game raises, and no more milking you out the fucking ass for extra shit. The only fucking problem I have with that is I don't see that fucking happening. I see them raising the fucking price to $80 a game, sure. I don't see them getting rid of DLC. I don't see them getting rid of loot boxes. I don't see them getting rid of microtransactions. I think the only way that they would abandon loot crates is if it is found, just like recently with, I think it was Belgium, that found loot crates. Legally, they declared them gambling. So, unless that would happen here in the United States, I don't see them getting rid of loot crates. I don't see them getting rid of microtransactions, and I don't see them getting rid of DLC. And the reason I'm saying that is day one patches. That's basically what I'm basing this all off of. Day one patches. How many games have been coming out lately that have day one patches? I forget what game it was that I was watching someone the other day. They had made a video about it. I think maybe it was Rime for the Switch. I could be wrong. But I think it was Rime for the Switch. And it was a day one patch. And you weren't talking about little simple shit. You're talking about a day one patch that without this patch, the game was fucking unplayable. Puzzles would not trigger. Missions wouldn't trigger. The frame rate was fucking atrocious. The game was near unplayable. You would get stuck in these glitches where you could not go any further. You couldn't progress further in the game. Now that's a day one patch. Now with people that are buying digital games, that's not a big a deal. That's not as big a deal to them as the people that are buying physical copies. But what about the person, 5 years from now, that's going to buy the physical cartridge of that game, and the console they're playing on doesn't have that patch, and the system, let's say the Switch is no longer supported in any way. You can't get updates or anything, so this guy's just shit out of luck because they released an unfinished fucking game. And if they can't even release a finished game under these circumstances, and they're releasing DLC and microtransactions and all this bullshit, how are they going to add on content by just raising the price $20? They're not going to have time to do that. Just look at the Assassin's Creed franchise, where they started trying to release a game every year like they were fucking Call of Duty or something. And I forget if it was Unity. I think it was Unity that came out. I had bought it, and the game was fucking ass. It was fucking dropping frames all over the fucking place. It was glitching. It was just horrible to fucking play. A lot of people brought their game back before the patch even fucking came out. And that's what we would have to look forward to. If the price would be raised and then no more DLC, no more microtransactions or anything. If we would expect a fully released game for $80, we'd probably get crappier games. Unless they did it right and they took however long they needed to finish the game 100%. But I mean, let's be real, in multiplayers, like let's say Gears of War. You take Gears of War, let's say Gears of War 5, let's say Destiny 3, Call of Duty, the newest flavor of the week, any shooter franchise that you want to name. 6 months, 3 months after the game comes out, there's no way they're not going to release a new map pack that you have to get or some bullshit like that. But even assuming they did, even assuming the game released and that's it, that's the game games today are incomplete when they come out. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any way around that. Games are coming out that are incomplete. It used to be, Konami would release Castlevania or Gradius, Lifeforce, whatever. Nintendo would release Super Mario Bros. 3. That game had some kind of game-breaking glitch. Well, guess what? That fucking dev team, that company lost their fucking ass. They lost their ass. But it's not like that anymore. You just gotta, release a patch and everything's fine. So much that these guys are stressing deadlines and they're just like, oh, don't worry about it. We could ship them today. They'll be ready. And then, we'll just do a day one patch. And there's like no concern for, well, who doesn't have internet? Who's not going to be able to, who's going to buy this game and not have the internet to fucking update it? Those people are just shit out of fucking luck. And like I'm saying, 5 years from now, I don't even know what the consequences are going to be for everyone buying digital copies. Me personally, I don't like digital copies. I did a brief period where I was buying digital copies on the 360, and I feel like I wasted that fucking money. A lot of games I deleted and I can't even get anymore. But the physical copies, if you have a day one patch and you miss out on buying this game, and 8 years from now you want the Switch, you get the Switch and you want this game and you go buy it, and the Switch is not being supported anymore, how are you supposed to get that patch for that game to get it working? I mean, this type of shit will have consequences in the future. I just think it's a bad business practice to be doing shit like this. And I think we as consumers have to fucking vote with our fucking wallets when it comes to shit like this. When companies are gonna do stuff like this, we have to keep letting it be known that we have a problem with things like this. They want to raise the prices to $80 a game, let's say. Okay, well then we get a complete fucking game. All anticipated DLC, microtransactions, loot crates, whatever they fucking planned on adding into the game, You don't release this game until everything that you planned on putting is already in it. The game doesn't need a fucking patch. It doesn't need a serious day one fucking patch. That's for damn sure. I mean, I can understand with multiplayers having to balance out certain guns, balance out certain things that people are taking advantage of, or whatever. But for, one-player campaign type stuff, the game should be complete, or your game doesn't sell well. You make Uncharted 5, Rise of the SJW, or whatever Neil Druckmann would call it, and you have a pretty much a broken game, then Naughty Dog loses their ass. They should have had a complete game for $80 fucking. That's how I feel. If gaming wants to raise the bar to $80 to get rid of all this bullshit, I say do it, but get rid of all the bullshit. Well, that's gonna do it for me. This is Trevor over Toploaded Gaming saying, fuck loot boxes, fuck microtransactions, fuck DLC, fuck day one patches, fuck EA.